I'm driving, and I start like having hot flashes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm having a heart
pregnant.
attack. Oh. I'm like, I'm having a heart attack from sleep deprivation. I'm not okay.
Right.
This is a problem. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm on the phone with Maya, but then Taylor calls because we had a meeting scheduled and I forgot about it. And so then I'm on the phone with Taylor. I'm like, Taylor, I think I'm dying. She's like, okay, let's find you a hotel at the next closest town, which is this town called Barstow, which is a freaking hour and a half away. So I'm like, I'm not going to make it.
We were somewhere near Barstow on the edge of the desert.
I don't feel good.
And the drugs began to take hold.
Okay. And then I was like, I'm going to shit myself suddenly. I was like, this is a problem. I'm going to shit myself.
Oh, no.
I'm dying, and I'm going to shit myself.
I'm going to shit myself and die.
And they would find you.
And then find me just covered in
with
shit
poopy pants.
and sleepy.
Yeah.
And sleepy.
And they'll be like, this is so bad.
And
so
in your
then I
Zion
hurry
clothes.
and
Dead
get
and
off the
poopy and
exit,
sleepy.
And I go into the gas station. And as I'm in the gas station pooping, there's a woman in there changing her child's diaper.
She got to the bathroom. No. She made it to the bathroom.
I didn't poop myself. But she's in there changing her child's diaper and gagging.
Oh, no.
So,
oh, my God.
And I'm like,
oh my God.
Oh, no.
So uncomfortable. So I like need to poo and I can't because she's like right out there gagging over her own child's like,
that's the worst.
Okay.
Oh,
and
my
then,
God.
Anyway, I go to the bathroom. I leave. I have to make eye contact with this woman who's gagging over her child's shit. And it's not that bad. Like, the shit isn't. Like, I don't know if she kidnapped this baby and that's why baby shit is all of a sudden bad. I don't think she did, but maybe. I felt like a weird reaction, baby shit. And then I go outside, and then I was like pretty fine, and I was able to drive home. So
yay!
Sometimes you just gotta go potty.
And then she called me, and she was like, "I think I just needed to poop," and I was like,
"Oh,
yeah,
good,
saved."
Yep. But I hadn't pooped for a few days because I am constipated all the time.
That'll do
That's crazy. I watched a show on Netflix the other day, and this girl hadn't pooped in 24 days. And she had to be removed from the island. It was like a Survivor type show. She had to be removed because she was so constipated, and she was gonna.
Oof.
She was
super dangerous.
Perforation.
Yeah, and then sepsis.
Like her intestines were gonna explode. Yeah.
Yeah. And
one
then
time
you got
I hadn't
poop
pooped
in
for
your
10
blood.
days, and I had to go to the ER.
Yeah, it's not good.
And the doctor.
Of perforation.
Yeah, because I was so afraid of perforation. No, I was afraid of it. I was like, I haven't pooped. I'm so uncomfortable. My tummy hurts. So I go to the ER. They're like, take laxatives. I was like, bish, you don't think I've done that? I just gave you a $500 copay. Yes, I've done that. And then they're like, okay, well, the only other option is to digitally stimulate you. And I was like, what's that? And then the doctor like snaps his glove like they do in the movies. I said, not you, doc. Your hands are too big. And then he chuckled. And then he gave me liquid magnesium citrate, 2 bottles is what you take to get a colonoscopy done. I chug those bitches. I feel nothing. I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna have to go back in the morning. And then I woke up the next morning and I pooed so many hours.
Yeah, I bet.
It was very cleansing, actually.
Saved.
So many hours.
But me and that doctor, maybe we would have had something if I would have let him digitally stimulate my asshole.
I couldn't. I couldn't get a professional massage. There's no way that I could feel okay about that.
Yeah, and I had tried everything. I had tried enemas. Have you ever done one of those?
I've heard of coffee enemas.
It's like shooting water up your butt or coffee. Because then the idea is it loosens everything up and then it just comes flooding out. That doesn't work. The water just comes out. And then there's these like suppositories, like they're like glycerin or something. You shove up there. I put that up there one time. It just plops on out. It's so
I almost
slippery.
had to help my friend in high school put 2 of those up her vagina.
Why? Her vagina? She's
pills, not
Seriously,
suppository.
why?
No, it was like a numbing pill, but it had to go up to your cervix to numb your cervix for when you get an IUD. So like you had to really like get them up there and like stick them on your cervix, and she couldn't do it. And like we were in the bathroom in high school, and she's like, "Can you help me?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know if I can help you."
I don't think I could do that.
That's like asking for a lot.
Once I see a labia, I don't think I go back, you know?
You've never seen a labia?
No, like friend's labia.
Oh, sure.
It
would be a lot.
Feels like a lot, yeah.
It would be a lot. Yeah, there was that, and then I've had one other close call, almost having to fish up a friend's vagina, and it was at summer camp. My friend couldn't find the string. Tampon string.
Oh no.
That's crazy. That like never happens.
Yeah, it's never happened to me, but who knows? Could. It's never too late.
True. every period you have a chance of getting toxic shock syndrome.
Yeah.
Ladies, plug your ears. This one's for the guys. Guys, toxic shock syndrome is when you leave a tampon in too long and then they have to like amputate your leg.
Yeah, and you like die.
Yeah.
You like die, or you just get your leg amputated.
It's literally like if you leave a tampon in too long. I don't know. We're uneducated. Speaking of which,
what?
I went down a podcast rabbit hole this morning.
Ooh.
And what I learned is
Let's
that
go.
we are stupid.
Why?
Because
That's not
the
good.
podcast I listened to were like, it was like psychologists, like doctors.
What?
They were doing these podcasts, and they were just like so articulate, and I was learning so much, and I was like, wow, ours is not like this. But then I listened to an episode of Call Her Daddy, because I was like, maybe this is more in line, and it was not. And so I was like, you know what? We're somewhere in the middle. And then I accidentally listened to a podcast called Call Her Holy, which is a spinoff of Call Her Daddy, and I thought that it was. I listened to like 20 minutes of it because I thought it was Call Her Holly. I thought because I was driving, and so I thought it was a girl named Holly. No, it was about Jesus. And then I went to a deeper podcast hole. I don't know how I got here, but I listened to 2 episodes this morning of a podcast called the Widowed Mom Podcast.
Whoa.
Oh
Let's go, Maya.
my God.
The Widowed Mom Podcast. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's a psychologist who specializes in grieving widowed moms.
Wow.
And it's really interesting.
Oh, I bet.
Because there's so many layers of things like to being widowed that she talks about. She talks about the patriarchy, and she talks about like marriage and whatever.
Oh, that's
and I listened
amazing.
to this episode this morning, and it was what to do when you find lies after you lose your husband. Like what to do after your husband dies and you find out he had an affair after he died.
What did she say? My mom did that. My mom died, and then I found out she lied about a bunch of shit, and I was like, what?
Oh.
Yeah.
She said that, number one, it's not your responsibility to keep the secret from other
So
people that are
true.
grieving
It's not.
alongside
Yeah.
you. Emily's grieving,
For
but
sure.
like it's not. You don't have to like protect him, you know, just because he's dead. Like you can share that, and like
Right,
people can
yeah.
help you. Like you don't have to be alone in that. And then, also because then it makes you feel bad because everyone's grieving and like they're so sad, but then you don't look sad because you like hate him.
You're
Or
like,
whatever,
yeah,
or
this
you like
guy,
feel
yeah.
really weird about it, and then everyone's like, "What's wrong with her? Like, why isn't she grieving?" Right? You know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then she said there's a lot of talk about like forgiveness and how like people are doing the best with what they have, you know, and just a bunch about like you can feel however you want to feel about it. Your feelings are your feelings.
Good stuff, though. Important
Look
shit.
Look at you. You just did it. You did the psychology podcast.
Yeah, way to go.
Oh, you're welcome. Also, this one's interesting. I was going to tell you about this privately, but it makes sense. You've done therapy for like grief. You've done a lot of therapy.
That's what the therapy I'm supposed to be in now is specialized in. But
Well-
I don't think it's worked.
I feel like when people think of grief, they think of the 5 stages of grief, right? They're like on grief and grieving, like 5 stages of grief. Turns out the 5 stages of grief, like denial, anger, whatever they are, was a study that was produced on hospice patients, and it was the stages that they go through to come to terms with their own death. And then for some reason, they adopted that to this is how you grieve other people's deaths, which is not accurate.
Interesting.
And
I don't like
it doesn't
that.
work like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's this whole like revolt. Like I learned all this from the Widowed Mom podcast. And there's this whole revolt against like the
Actually,
5
she
stages
really
of
recommends
grief,
it.
and like
Wow.
and how it doesn't make any sense, and how it's much more complicated than that.
Dude, I'll tell you what. So my therapist, this bitch, she's like, I come to her. I was like, I've been journaling. I've been
I hate
trying.
journaling.
I'm not getting better, but I'm doing my best. And she's like, what do you journal about? And I was like, my day. And she's like, you're supposed to journal about your feelings. And I was like, well, that's cringe.
I
You know what
mean,
else they said? They also talked about self-affirmations, and they're like, if you say them to yourself and you don't believe them, it's working the opposite way of what you want them to. Which I know you do that, and I know you're like, oh, I just have to keep doing it until I believe it. But today, she was like, you can't say, I feel this way, but that's okay because I love myself deeply and completely, because if you don't believe the second part, then it's going to make you hate yourself more. She was like, then you're
What
going to
am I
think you're
spo-
stupid.
What am I supposed to do?
You're supposed to be
what
like,
I-
it's okay that I feel like I
in those moments, I feel like if your affirmations aren't like, if you don't feel genuine in your affirmations, you just got to take a second to like, that's where meditation comes in. You got to go back to silence. You got to go back to, if you literally cannot get your brain to stop doing negative things and feeling a negative type of way, you got to take breaths, focus on your breathing, focus on your physical body, the only thing that's physically real in this world. All of your feelings and all of your emotions and all of that stuff, that's all within you. And so don't worry about what's within right now. Just take a second to breathe. Try not to think about anything, but if you do think about something, it's okay. Just let it come and let it go so that eventually you're back down to zero, to silence, to no thoughts. Just your breath. And your breath doesn't have to have thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, your breath is your breath. You're going to breathe. It's a human instinct to breathe. It's why we gasp for air while we're drowning, because that's our human instinct. It's why you can remind yourself not to hiccup by just reminding yourself that you're a human that breathes air and you're not a fish. Instinctually, you just breathe. So just take a second to breathe and remember to stay in that breath whenever you are overwhelmed by negative thoughts. Let yourself go back to zero, to the baseline, which is silence. There was a point of your life when you were an infant that your brain literally did this a lot. It did a lot of silence, and you had a lot of joy back then, because starting from this baseline, you can then choose which way you're going to feel about the next couple thoughts. But you got to get to that baseline first. You got to get to the point where your brain is silent and you don't have any thoughts. And you'll know when you're there, because it's an amazing feeling. The first time that I did it, I was like in my mid-20s. I mean, the first time I did it as an adult, I was, I think, 26 or 27, and I had been meditating for a while. I had practiced it like a lot. And mostly it started out as just me sitting there thinking a bunch of stuff, and I was just thinking and thinking and thinking, and everything I read was like, that's fine. Your goal is to get to the point where you're letting all the thoughts go, and eventually the thoughts are all out of there. And one day I was sitting there doing that, and I had, like I said, I'd been doing it for a while. I'd been practicing it, but it just happened. All of a sudden I realized, like, my eyes were closed and my thought was just a blank black screen with no words. There was no sound, and there were no thoughts. And it was just my breath and this black screen. And it was like the most amazing feeling in the world when I opened my eyes, and all of a sudden it was like, you get to start from here. You get to start from nothing now. Now that you've meditated properly to the point where you're at silence, you get to start from here and decide how you feel from here. And maybe you'll feel negatively. Maybe it'll be another, there's times when the cycle of bad feelings just happens to go for a long time. The wheel of your emotions might stay at a low point for longer than usual, but just remember that it is a wheel and that it'll keep rotating, and eventually you're going to be back in high spirits and it's going to be good, But that's what I think that I see Cutie and Maya both struggling with the most, because you can tell both of them think so much. They're so smart, and they both have so many experiences and thoughts and plans that it's just like, it's probably impossible for them to take moments to just like stop. Although I notice Maya does it quite a bit, which is probably part of why Maya is like a little bit more like, she's the stability in these conversations, because you can tell Maya actually does take time to really stop and go, she might not actually get to the point where she's not, thoughts aren't racing through her head, but she definitely seems to take more time to like actually process, and like not even process, just allow herself to stop processing. You know what I mean?
I feel really angry.
Sorry for that long ass tangent. It's just, sometimes these podcasts make me think of all kinds of stuff.
No, but that's okay for now.
I've been listening to Lavendare's 15 minutes of fucking affirmations for...
You're just going to cringe at yourself. You're going to be like, this is so stupid. This. You're like, this is not going to work.
I don't know if I agree necessarily. Like, it's not necessarily that you're going to cringe at yourself, because some affirmations are awesome, and the idea of using them, especially if they're effective, is great. That's how I feel about affirmations. Keep doing them. If they're if there's even a slightest chance that they're working and not hurting, then keep doing them. And in a lot of cases, they're not, because being embarrassed at yourself or feeling stupid or whatever, like that's not necessarily a bad thing. That can be a humbling and good thing for you to be like, okay, why is this not working?
I just zone out. I'm not kidding. I just zone out, and I think I respect myself. I love my body.
Right. I can literally
I just zone out.
Yeah, there's just absolutely nothing there right now.
Really?
Yeah, you hate that.
I'm trying to remember. I do hate it, but I've gotten to the point where I don't argue with it. I just am zoned out.
Yeah.
Do you think that's helpful?
No.
Oh.
I don't.
Great.
I have a tragedy therapy related.
Wait. I didn't finish.
Okay.
Real quick, and then we'll jump in to you. So she's like, write about your feelings. And I'm like, okay. Right. And so then I went to yoga, and I actually did. I know I made a joke earlier, but I do that about my trauma. It's fine. I did get really, really sad when she was talking about, she's like, my mom's going to do a sound bath, and I'm going to lead the yoga. And if you have moms, bring your moms, and we're going to have like a mother.
Sound bath works in the same way as the breathing exercise for me and for a lot of people. For some people, it does not. For some people, sound triggers thoughts no matter what. If there's too much sound, it's just going to make your thoughts keep going. But for me, a sound bath is so nice because once you can have one sound to focus on, like the sound of a singing bowl or the sound of a chime ringing or something, I can just I can zone out and just focus on that one thing. And it's so peaceful. You know what I mean?
Mother's Day class, and then I got in my car, and I was just so sad. And then I was like, I can either be sad or I can do what I normally do, which is zoink, you know? And then I was like, okay, sit in the sadness, because my therapist was like, when you have feelings, you need to feel them. And so I'm like, be sad. And so I'm like trying to remember that I'm sad. And then I forgot.
That's great. I don't think you need to feel it that way. It's just, I think what Cutie's therapist is saying is pretty similar to what I'm saying about meditation. It's that when you have feelings, it's the same way as when you have thoughts while you're meditating. It's like you got to let yourself have them, and then once they're over, you can look back on them and be like think about oh, how exactly did I feel, and how did it affect my mood, and what did I do? How did it affect my actions and my words? A lot of times looking at the things that we said, and Cutie is in a really lucky position that she has so much content of herself out on the internet that she could just look back at all kinds of stuff and really analyze kind of what she was feeling at the time and how because that's always a really healthy thing to dwelling on it for too long is not healthy, but looking back at yourself and being analytical of your growth, there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's healthy, I think.
Because that's what I do best. And then I got home and it was time to journal. And my therapist was like, write about your feelings. So I start just writing about the yoga teacher talking about her mom. And then the feelings come back. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm hacking it. And then I just start sobbing.
Oh.
And I sobbed for 5
God.
pages of journaling. Sobbing.
It's working.
I know.
That is good.
I'm not, it wasn't single tears. It was hyperventilating, having to take breaks, sobbing.
That is sick, dude.
It was very cathartic. Yeah.
That is good sometimes.
Wow.
It's really important to be able to cry like that.
Obviously. The next day.
Cutie has talked about how she can't she doesn't burst out in laughing with things that are really funny. And she doesn't really have a lot of moments where she really sobs her eyes out. There's one famous one on stream now, obviously, because of that fucking whole controversy shit. But I can understand that as someone who's definitely when you go through trauma, you learn to turn off your emotions because that's the only way that you're going to survive it. Sometimes your trauma will get so strong and overwhelming that it's if I don't have some kind of shield for this, I'm actually going to self-destruct or just not make it through this.
I didn't know what to write.
Well, yeah, you don't do that 2 days in a row. What the
I don't know how it works.
No, you don't do that two days in a row. It's a freaking breakthrough. That's so sick.
Yeah, it was very cool.
I'm excited to hear what your therapist says about that. She's going to be so stoked.
Well, I was supposed to go to her today, and I canceled because I forgot to tell her I was out of town. And I think she also didn't believe that I would make it because I purposely had an appointment with her on Thursday to try to convince me to go on Friday. And she was like, I don't want you to push yourself if you can't do it. And I was like, okay, just see you on Monday. And I was like, yeah, probably. So I didn't think I was going to go, but it was good for me.
Okay, well, she's going to be really excited. That's sick.
Maybe.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
I'm excited because you cried.
Hey, thank you so much for the follow.
I have a tragic therapy story.
I appreciate you.
Therapy situation. I have had the same therapist since 2016. 7 years I've had. I've had my
That's
same
awesome,
therapist
actually.
for 7 years, since I was a freshman in college, and I can't work with her anymore. And it has nothing to do with like her not wanting to work with me or me not wanting to work with her. It's a higher up thing than that. But we have to stop working together. And it stresses me out.
That's a bummer, yeah.
And it's so beyond, like, I'm going to have to re-explain my life. I mean, that is the biggest part, though, is, like, I'm going to have to re-explain my life to a new therapist.
It's
and this is a
important,
therapist
though.
that, like,
So that's, I feel like if you're the sort of person who has, like, a significant trauma and you need to see a therapist over it, like, sometimes it is important to be able to tell your story over again to a fresh person who you know is going to be understanding, who's going to listen, and that's what professionals are for, is, you know what I mean? They went to school to do this. I don't know if this is the reason why Maya is not seeing her therapist anymore, but for me, I had a childhood therapist who I grew up with. Like, I went from the time I was a little kid all the way up until I was like a teenager, because I had like all kinds of childhood trauma. But you can actually, I feel like there's definitely a place where you can get too comfortable with a therapist to the point that you just don't get work done anymore. You're not able to really open up to them anymore. You're just kind of your buddy acquaintances, and it's all the conversations get a little cordial and turns into like it was another week, no big deal, nothing happened, even though there might have been breakthroughs that you would have been paying attention to if you had a therapist that you didn't feel over familiar with, that you knew, like, I'm going to be seeing this therapist later this week, and so I want to remember this way that I felt right now so that I can talk to them about it later. Once you get over familiar with a therapist, sometimes that doesn't happen. So that's kind of what started happening with me. And then also I moved away from my therapist for a long time. So it's an interesting thing, but therapy is so good. I really think that honestly, like, every single human being can benefit from talking to a professional who's like there to hear you. It doesn't matter, like, if you have a neurodivergence or not, if you have an emotional problem or not. You don't have to have any kind of problems at all to be able to go to a therapist and like work some stuff out that's really going to help you grow as a person. That's just how I feel about it.
She was there, like, when I was with my boyfriend of 5 years, when we broke up, when I got with Ms. when we broke up, when I got with that other guy, then we broke up. Then when I got with my current boyfriend, like, she's been there for every one of them. I've done over 400 hours with this woman of therapy. And, like, you know how long it's going to take too? She understands so much. You know how long it's going to take for me to get to a therapist where I can sit down and she can be like, well, what happened today? And I could be like,
to them what Twitch chat is.
Dude, man, like, I got one guide by a Hassan Frog today.
I will say that it's got to be really, really hard as a professional streamer. Like, I'm just barely dipping my toes into this thing. I've been doing it for years, but I don't have chat. I don't have, you know what I mean? I don't have a viewership like these girls do. I cannot imagine what it's like to have to try to explain to a therapist what you're going through on the internet on a daily basis just to do, like, a job that you love. It's wild. The fucking, especially with misogyny the way that it is right now, it's just like, it's so out of control.
And then I talked about it and it got clipped and put on LSF, and then I actually reacted to it, and then my chat was shit the next day. You know? And she understands what that means. What the hell does that mean? You know, like, that's going to take me so long to break down and, like, explain to a new therapist, like, just the layers, and I don't even want to do it. I don't even know if I want to do it, but I feel like I need it, and it stresses me out.
Yeah, you obviously need it.
But, like,
what sucks is that you have to, like, not every therapist is a good fit, so you might have to do it multiple times. Like, you might have to tell.
I know,
True.
and you have to give it like 3 to 5 weeks at least to be like, is this working or is it not?
Yeah.
But
True.
I'm devastated. We're both devastated. It's also 400 plus hours with the person. Like, she cried when she told me. It was really sad. She was like,
that's sad.
She was like, not to break the fourth wall. That's not how she said it, but she was like, I'm gonna miss you. Like,
oh, bummer.
This is really sad for me. And she was like, I hope you understand that this is really hard for me too. And I'm crying. And I was like, what the fuck, lady? Like,
it makes sense, especially because, like, both of these girls are so special as people. I mean, all people are special, obviously, but we've gotten to see so much of their lives that we know that they're special and cool, and we know that they have like so much. So I can imagine, like, because you think about it, how many people in Maya's Twitch chat would like kill to just spend an hour a week just talking, just being like, oh yeah, let's just catch up. That's got to be such a cool thing that even if you are a therapist who's keeping it professional, doing it the way that you're supposed to be doing it, it's still got to feel like kind of a privilege. You know what I mean? It's like being a therapist for a celebrity, kind of.
Yeah.
I just like rely on her so much. It's gonna be so hard.
Yeah, that's rough.
So I don't even know where to start.
I don't have advice.
Thanks.
Aw.
But I have sympathy.
Thank you. That's really nice.
That is really nice.
Yeah, because I don't. It sucks. I mean, you know what you got to do, and it's not a fun situation, and it's just.
I honestly, I don't want to.
Not fun.
I don't know.
Well, you got it.
I feel like I should start now, so that
you should.
I can get with someone, and then like they're there if things come crashing down. But also,
you
like,
should see if you can give her permission to talk to the new one, and maybe she can fill him in on some back end. That's important. It'll save you a lot.
That might be good.
Because like my therapist and my psychiatrist.
Oh, that's such a. I'm not gonna do Cutie dirty like that. Hold on, let her open her eyes. I think that is one of those things that I know why Maya is hesitant about that, because it's a scary thing to say, like, why don't you have this professional talk to that professional about your case, basically. And it's like, this isn't just my case when you're talking about a therapist. This is my life. This is something super, super personal. So if this is misexplained, or if something gets lost in translation, it's not just a matter of like, I don't know. Yeah, you get the idea. It's pretty extreme there.
We're now talking to each other.
Yeah.
Because my therapist made me cry last week.
Oh, right.
Remember when she told me to like, she was like asking me what I had told the psychiatrist, and she was like, have you told him this? And I was like, no. And she's like, have you told him this? And she's like, let's write up a message to them. And I was like, I feel like a fucking toddler right now. And so we like writing up this message, and she's having me list all my fucking problems, which are quite a bit.
Yeah.
I've got like hypochondria, I've got OCD, I've got, like, it's a lot. And then I just started crying because I was like, I'm such a fuck up. And she was like, oh, I'll talk to her instead. And I'm like, why didn't you lead with this?
Yeah, it would have been a really sick idea.
So it might be helpful. I wonder if you could set that up.
There is that. Okay, there is definitely that, especially if part of your neurodivergence is that you are avoidant of your problems, which is a lot of us, a whole shitload of us, me, myself included, is that part of what's wrong with our brain is that it doesn't want to treat itself. It doesn't want to be fixed. It just wants to wallow in what's wrong with it. And that's rough. It's a really rugged problem, but that's where professionals really can help. That's where you can really, I mean, like you said, you can actually have a professional step in and be like, I can take care of some stuff for you if you need it. It's there. It really is there. I know that the American healthcare system fucking sucks, but there are people out there who are being paid to help anybody who's having, those kind of issues.
Yeah. It's also just really scary because I got so lucky with this therapist. She's the first one I'd ever had. And I got so lucky that she's so good. And like, I take everything she says as like the word of God. Like, I believe it's not her opinion. It's like, that's correct, And what I realized, I've tried other therapists since I started with her because I've done other types of therapy. And I didn't realize until trying other therapists that therapists are people, and they're like completely, like, they can be bad at their job, and they can be wrong, and they can be like, they can have values that don't align with mine, and they could have an agenda for me because they're this blank type of person. I am so scared to try to sort through that with a person that I'm going to rely on for my mental health. Like, I don't know where to start with that, and it gives me a ton of anxiety, enough to where I don't want to start.
I had one of the first therapists I ever had when I was first having really gnarly panic attacks. So I was like 21 or something, just having like the first time I was like hospitalized for a panic attack. And so I finally go to a therapist. This bitch tells me, she's like, you're young. You have nothing to be stressed about. Go home and watch The Bachelorette with your friends.
What the fuck?
I'm not kidding you.
What the fuck?
Oh my God.
It was insane.
That's unhinged for
So
a
it's definitely a
professional to
shopping
do that.
situation, which sucks.
That brings up the whole issue as well, like I said, about healthcare. I know that the American healthcare system is shit as far as money is concerned. And then on top of that, there are people out there that are just either they're not trained well or they're not good at leaving their personal stuff out of a professional situation. And when you're dealing with mental health, that means that you yourself have to have your mental health like down so that you're not doing stuff like that, because that's what that therapist did, was very dismissive, and that shows something that the therapist needs to work on, right? So it's a thing as well. It's why shopping for a therapist is such a scary thing, and why Maya's got so much trepidation about it, and I totally understand that.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then, like, what if I find someone that I think is good, and then they slowly just give me bad advice? You know, what if they, like, poison my brain? I don't even know what's happening. I don't mean to scare people out of therapy. Therapy is the best thing that has happened to me as a person, maybe ever. Like, I would not be who I am today, or have the emotional regulation that I do, or the tools that I have. Like, I could not make it through most of what has happened without a therapist. It's very important. It's just finding a new one is daunting.
And it's very,
I understand that.
It's a lot.
I think that's probably the biggest hurdle for a lot of people, is getting into therapy. If you could grab a friend who's known you all your life and just be like, hey, we need to therapize each other. And a lot of people do. I mean, that's what a lot of lifelong friendships become, is people kind of just working their shit out by having conversations. It's why so many people from like the Boomer and Gen X generations like call each other on the phone once a week. It's literally just, you know, that same kind of deal. We got to catch up with each other, see how everything's going, feel out our emotions. And by doing so, we sometimes bounce our emotions off of each other and get ideas for how to feel and how to react to things. But Maya's concern is valid. It's definitely valid. And she's also right that it shouldn't scare people away from therapy, because finding a good therapist is really, really important.
It's just a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Well,
we almost did a whole podcast where we were talking about like other things.
We were funny for a little bit.
That weren't like depressing or like mental health related.